We kick things off in a mysterious world where we see a couple of girls being taken somewhere in a carriage. They look like they've been taken as slaves but have no idea who's going to be using them. One of the girls is called Sarah and her body is a bit too exposed at this point, so it causes her sister, Rora, some concern. She asks Sarah to cover up, but then they get distracted by the sounds of a dragon flying above them. Even the people riding the carriage show fear in their hearts as they look at the monstrous beast roaring into the endless sky. The girls are a bit confused as to why the dragon has shown up, so they wonder if it is pitying their current state. Anyway, these girls are not the main characters. So we shift to a place in Tokyo, Japan. This looks like an alternate world and an old man shouts at a boy named Ryama, also known as Ryu. It looks like this man is Ryu's sensei and he is challenging him to a deadly battle. He even says that Ryu can have all his wealth if he manages to take his life, and this interests our hero. Tensions run high as the samurai warriors prepare to give it their all in a fight to the finish. With that, an intense battle kicks off, and Ryu manages to pull some impressive moves on his sensei. As a matter of fact, he does so well that he almost manages to stab his sensei's throat. This makes the old man upset and he shouts at Ryu for going all the way. But our hero says that he's only doing what he has been taught. After all, in such a situation, a true samurai would even attack his own parents. The sensei is impressed by his students' moves. But he is the master, so he goes on to show his own moves, all of which are known to be lethal from just one blow. However, Ryu doesn't care about any of this and decides to go all in for this match. However, before we can see the victor of this encounter, we shift to a cute girl named Asuka who is making breakfast for both Ryu and his sensei. She asks the men if they were having fun with each other, but this offends Ryu because he is not the type to have fun with other men. He simply says that he and his sensei were trying to end each other. But Asuka smacks him on the head because she feels he's just trying to joke around. Of course, it looks like she has a thing for Ryu, and the sensei even addresses the elephant in the room by telling Asuka she's like a wife to Ryu. That's when we learn that the sensei is actually Asuka's grandpa. She instantly says that she does not have a lewd relationship with Ryu, but her grandpa thinks that Asuka likes to do roleplay with her lover boy. Of course, this makes things awkward for Asuka, but Ryu looks fine, so the sensei asks him if he has a love rival. He then tells Ryu that he should not spare anyone who tries to get his filthy hands on Asuka's body. As a matter of fact, he shouldn't even hold back from ending their lives if it ever gets to that. This leads to a fiery chat between Ryu and his sensei. But Asuka has had enough of the boys, so she decides to leave for school. It turns out that Ryu is a very popular boy in his own school, because he's very tall and buff. A cute girl comes up to him and asks if he'd like to join the karate club. But our hero says no even though the girl makes a sweet innocent face. She still says that she will wait for Ryu to say yes to her one day. And then we see other kids from the school talk about how strong Ryu is. Every club wants him to join, but our hero can only think about what his sensei told him about striking with intent. This is actually what stops him from joining clubs, because he might just take someone's life by accident if he strikes them with intent. Now, Ryu walks up the stairs and goes to have lunch at the rooftop area. He's gotten a special meal made by Asuka, but he doesn't want her to do so much for him. Ryu takes a bite of his food and once again thinks about how bad it could get for him if he got too excited in the middle of a sparring session. After all, he could end up in jail even if he accidentally ends another person. It's at this very moment that we see a giant circle of energy form around him and zap him away from this world. In a hilarious turn of events, our hero is summoned into another world and is surrounded by a variety of ancient men, all of whom look like they are warrior knights. The men are happy to see the summoning process finally getting success, and they are pleased to find Ryu's body to be big and strong. The wizard who has summoned him is called Gaetsu, and he looks at Ryu with caution because you can't judge a book by its cover. With that, he tells the other men to quickly put a curse on Ryu before it's too late. Our hero has no idea what's going on because he's not in school anymore. What he also notices is an intense intent to attack by one of the men in the room. He doesn't want to take any half chances, so he decides to use the element of surprise. It's at this time when Ryu remembers what his sensei had taught him about showing mercy to an enemy. He then offers some food to the attacking man and completely baffles him. Of course, this is what Ryu wanted in the first place, so he brings out his punches and takes him down with ease. Of course, this is only the beginning of his attacks as he proceeds to grab the soldier's sword and beat him up with it. Our hero puts up an impressive display, despite the fact that he is up against a knight who is wearing armor for protection. However, he can't celebrate just yet, because he gets a sneak attack from behind by another knight. Ryu realizes that he's in a tricky spot, but he doesn't let it get to him and turns around just in time to launch a counter. Ryu is a bit too good for these knights as he gives them a run for their money. His battle skills impress one and all, but the men over here don't want to be dominated by him. As a matter of fact, Gaetsu is the one who is the most upset, and he decides to use his cheat code move to end our hero. He starts chanting a spell and mentions the word thunder, which catches Ryu's attention. Our hero knows that he won't be able to counter thunder by himself, no matter how good he is with a sword. One of the knights attacks him at the same time, and then Geitsu unleashes a finisher move on Ryu. It's an intense attack that gives off a strong visual display, and it looks like Ryu has finally met his end. But then we see that the attacking knight is the one who was struck by lightning. Geitsu realizes that Ryu had used the knight as a shield, and has come out of the attack completely unharmed. Our hero is upset with the way he's being treated, so he launches a punch straight into Geitsu's chest, which damages his right lung and causes him to cough out blood. Geitsu is now completely at Ryu's mercy, so our hero asks him where he is. Geitsu tries to use another spell, but his lung has been damaged, so he can't say a single word. The wizard doesn't want to meet an untimely end, so he tells Ryu that he is currently at the Royal Palace, which is the west of the central continent. Ryu is told that he is in the Ultomia Empire, which makes no sense to him because such a place does not exist on Earth. He asks why he's here, and Geitsu says that he had cast a summoning spell and transported him to the palace. Our hero doesn't believe a single word of his, but Geitsu wonders if Ryu had used his punch to damage his lung on purpose. After all, he can't chant any spells now because of it. Ryu has had enough of these games, so he gives a bright smile and asks Geitsu if he can go back to his original world. However, he gives off a strong killer instinct while doing this, and it makes the wizard even more impressed. Geitsu thinks that he can use Ryu to take over the central continent, but for that, he should have some kind of control over the overpowered fighter. This is a tricky moment for the wizard, and he has never found himself so powerless before. The problem is that he has only managed to perform a successful summoning now, and he has no idea what to do to send our hero back. If he tells Ryu that he can be sent back, then Geitsu will be forced to do it somehow, and his dreams of becoming king shall remain simple dreams. However, if he lies to Ryu now and tells him the truth later, then his life will not be spared. Considering that he is known by so many people in this kingdom, it would make sense for him to not lose his life like this. Geitsu thinks about stalling for time till the other guards arrive, but Ryu doesn't have time for this, so he checks the wizard's pulse. He can sense that Geitsu's heart rate is quite high, so it could mean that he doesn't have a way to send him back home. The wizard is exposed quite easily and admits that he doesn't have the skills to return Ryu to Earth. Geitsu is uneasy at the moment, and prays for his lung to recover just in time for him to cast a spell and get rid of Ryu. Our hero uses his brains and figures that Geitsu had no intention of sending him back alive if he only knew how to summon him here. Ryu wants to know his purpose in this world, and that's when Geitsu explains that people like him have high absorption powers, which is why they are usually summoned. Ryu wants to know what this means, so the wizard explains that humans can absorb the powers of the people they end in this world. The information takes our hero by surprise, but it looks like Geitsu has stalled for enough time and his lung is back to normal now. He can chant again, so he brings out the thunder spell once more. However, Ryu is too quick on his feet and he unleashes one more deadly punch on the wizard. Geitsu is in pretty bad shape now, and Ryu is glad that he's in this world because you can't call this self-defense back on Earth. Meanwhile, we see a cute girl asking the knights to go check up on Geitsu, who happens to be her grandpa. The knights say that the laws forbid them from interfering with the summoning process. After all, it's the most secret out of all the other secret techniques of this world. The cute girl's name is revealed to be Syria, and she maintains that something might have gone wrong because it's taking too much time. The commander of the knights asks Syria to calm down, but she can't afford to have her grandpa fail even once. The knight commander's name is shown to be Rolf, and he asks Syria to get a hold of herself. She finally comes to her senses and says sorry for being so rude and unsightly. However, Rolf says that he is the one being rude because Syria is related to Geitsu by blood, so it's only normal for her to be worried. This is all it takes for Syria to unleash her wild side, and she has no worries because even grand-level magicians make mistakes sometimes. She prepares to use one of her most deadly moves, so Rolf asks his men to stand back if they want to get out of this alive. Without further ado, Syria brings out a flame blast that is so powerful that it manages to damage the entire steel door in front of her. It's an impressive attack, but Rolf knows that a fire blast is not going to be enough to take down a steel door. However, Syria isn't done just yet, and she uses a freeze spell to make the door crumble into little pieces. Rolf is amazed to see this, because it takes a lot of skill to be able to use both fire and ice type spells. With the door finally taken down, Syria tells Rolf that he can now do as he pleases. He orders his men to step forward and check in on Geitsu, and they obey their leader without hesitation. The team enters the hallway and remain cautious in case they come across demons or monsters. What they witness after that is a horrid sight of defeated men and lifeless bodies. Out of these ghastly sights, Syria has to endure the worst one of them all, which is that of her own grandpa. She is in tears and lost for words upon seeing Gaesu's body. But Rolf shifts his focus to a wounded knight who is barely able to speak, since he is still breathing. There is a chance for the soldiers to learn what really happened. However, the knight can only say the word monster, so Rolf orders his men to take him to the infirmary as soon as possible. Rolf tries to assure the man that he is going to live through this, so he doesn't need to say anything for now. However, we soon learn that there's more to the survivor than meets the eye. He smiles right after hearing what Rolf says to him, so it could very well be possible that the survivor is just our hero in disguise. Moving forward, Syria has recovered from the grief of losing Gaesu and starts to use her detective skills. After all, Gaetsu is supposed to be the most powerful wizard in the whole kingdom, so it would take a special kind of monster to take his life. After taking a look at all the other knights, she can see from the autopsy report that they have all been ended by someone who had used his bare hands. She is a bit confused because there is no monster that has hands as far as she knows. On top of that, there is no trace of this beast anywhere in the castle either. Rolf is just as shocked as Sarai, because all the knights that were ended had strong armor on them. It's impossible to believe such a thing, but the autopsy reveals that there are finger marks on the necks of some of the soldiers. Also, some of the bodies had their skulls smashed from behind. So this is a ruthless monster on the loose. Rolf tries to make sense of the whole thing, but even the surviving knight had used the word monster. This causes him to wonder if the human summoned from another world was actually a monster in disguise. This should not be the case though, as humans are supposed to be weak when they first enter this world. There's not much evidence to go by, so Rolf will have to rely on asking the culprit for the answers when he ends up catching him. His thoughts are put on hold when one of the knights comes charging into the room, citing an emergency. Rolf asks him what's wrong, and learns that the infirmary has been damaged all of a sudden. It turns out that someone has set fire to the infirmary, and then we see a young man taking a look at some flowers in the garden. He is pleased by the beauty of nature, but then he also notices that the infirmary is on fire. The knights panic and try to look for a magician to help them with the situation. That's when the young man unleashes his powers and uses a water storm attack to take care of the fire. His skills are quite impressive and his name is revealed to be Orlando, as is said by Sarai when she and Rolf reach the scene of the crime. Sarai demands to know what has gone down, but Orlando says that even he just got here and was able to stop the fire. She doesn't care for things that she can also figure out by herself, and this puts Orlando in a tricky spot. Syria is fiery as ever, but Orlando manages to convince her that he does not know much about anything. She proceeds to ask him if he knows anything about the surviving knight who was being taken to the infirmary. Orlando is clueless as usual, so she decides to shift her focus to the imperial doctor, who is called Ronbelt. He says that the soldier did arrive at the infirmary, but he is not what the others had believed him to be. As a matter of fact, he ended up taking the life of his son Aaron as well. Dr. Ronbelt takes a sip of booze and proceeds to narrate what went down in the infirmary. We are taken to a quick flashback where we see the injured knight being brought to Aaron by another knight. He needs to be treated quickly, so Aaron rushes to his dad to help with the patient. However, Ronbelt is only interested in drinking from his bottle, so he leaves the whole thing on Aaron. The young doctor is shocked to see his own father being so useless, but you can't expect much from a man who loves drinking. With that, Aaron decides to get to work and he asks the knight to remove the patient's armor. However, this is where it all goes wrong for him as the patient suddenly wakes up and stabs the knight with a hidden weapon. Aaron is shocked to see this, and he tries to escape while also crying out for help. Unfortunately for him, the patient catches him from behind and starts to choke him while he continues to call out to the others. It's no surprise that the patient is actually Ryu, who has managed to pull a fast one on Rolf and Syria. Aaron begs Ryu to let him go, so our hero apologizes for his behavior, but also asks from where he can escape. Aaron is a bit confused and continues to struggle, but he's no match for Ryu, who has already absorbed the powers of the people he has ended in this world. With no other option, Aaron gives Ryu an escape route, but then our hero snaps his neck because he can't risk Aaron revealing his location to the others. After all, he believes that he's only been summoned here to be a slave. After he's done with Aaron, Ryu checks out all the medical supplies and decides to start a fire, which led to the eventual explosion. We're back to the present now, where Dr. Ronbelt tells Syria and Rolf that they need to catch the culprit as soon as they can before he gets away. Syria wants to act fast, so she orders Orlando to start chanting his magic, and also asks Rolf to gather his men. Of course, Orlando has no clue what she wants him to do, so Syria gets annoyed with him. Dr. Ronbelt tells Orlando that he should do as she says, because it's the only way they're going to be able to catch the culprit. Orlando agrees to this and asks Syria how much power he should put in. She says that he should give it all he's got because this monster is a lot tougher than all of them combined. Orlando gets the message and decides to use his special skill of teleportation. He is able to teleport instantly, which impresses Dr. Ronbelt. However, Orlando is the third-ranked magician and used to be a student of Gaesu, so Syria expects nothing less from him. Now, Syria tells Rolf that she will teleport him to the barracks so that he can get his men ready. He is fine with this, but also tells her that she will need to sort out the permission from the king himself. This actually reminds Syria that she needs to meet the king to discuss the monster, so she asks Dr. Ronbelt to take care of everything over here for now. He's fine with it, so she summons a portal and goes on her way, after which Ronbelt just sits on the floor to drink his sorrows away. He did just lose his son, so in this case, he is allowed to use the bottle. Meanwhile, Syria teleports to the royal guard and shocks the knights standing in front of the throne room. They tell her that she will lose her life for using this magic in the royal castle, but Syria doesn't care for any of that and shows her face to the guards. They recognize her instantly, and she says that she needs to meet the king urgently. The guards want to know why she wants to see him, but this only makes Syria angry, and she orders the guards to do as she says if they don't want her to use fire magic to destroy the door. The guards don't take any chances and open the door for Syria, which leads to the king, who has his chancellor Doltnest next to him. It's obviously a serious matter, but Doltnest scolds Syria for not showing the proper respect to his majesty. He also wonders why the first-ranked magician is not here if the matter is so urgent. He is ready to scold Syria some more, but then the king tells him to stop being rude. Doltnest tries to justify his rudeness by saying Syria had to put up such a show just to get an audience with the king. But he has had enough of the chancellor, so he tells him to keep silent. The king's name is Wionel Isenhardt, and he is also known as the Lion Emperor. Doltnest knows his position, so he says sorry for his rudeness and keeps his mouth shut. With that, the king allows Syria to speak, and she says that she needs to take command of the royal guard. Doltnest can't believe what he's hearing, so he tries to mock Syria once again, but King Isenhardt is fine with it as long as she can convince him that she deserves it. Doltnest is at a loss for words. But the king also asks for Gaetsu because he is not here. That's when Syria reveals that her grandpa has been murdered and is no longer with us. Before we can check the reactions of the king and Doltnest, we move to our hero Ryu, who thinks back to how Gaetsu was looking at him with shady eyes. Something was clearly wrong with Gaetsu's intentions of summoning Ryu to this world. But Hiro doesn't have time for this, so he tries to get out of the castle by dressing up as one of the knights. We move to a brief flashback where we get to see more of what Ryu had spoken to Gaetsu about. Our hero needed more clarity on why humans like himself are brought to this world so often, especially because they're not always good with swords and spears. That's when Gaetsu had said that humans possess the ability to become the ultimate warriors in this world. This is due to their ability to absorb the powers of the people they end. But it's a different kind of logic. Basically, in order to gain the strength of one human, our hero would have to get rid of 1,000 humans. Similarly, if he were to gain the strength of one dragon, then he would need to finish off 100 dragons. So, even though Ryu had taken care of the knights in the dungeon, he has not gained all their powers because he will need to end many more such humans. We're back to the present now, where Ryu is considering what to do with his new knowledge. The idea of becoming as strong as a dragon is very appealing. But the main issue here is that Ryu is indeed in another world and not his own. He is a bit sad after coming to terms with his new reality because he is no longer with his sensei or Asuka. On top of that, he is a wanted man here, which means that everyone is on the lookout for him. Luckily, Ryu is a smart man, as he had dumped the armor he stole earlier outside the city. He is sitting and eating lunch inside the city now, which is a good idea because the soldiers will simply assume that he has tried to escape. Ryu had also stolen money from the knights he ended, and was able to buy new clothes with it, which means that his school uniform also won't stand out. However, he has no idea what to do because he has never been in an alternate world before. In order to cheer him up, a lady drops by and says that she hasn't seen him here before. She wonders if he's a traveler and then gives him a whole bunch of beer. Ryu is shocked to see beer in this world, but tells the lady that he hasn't ordered for any. Regardless, the woman wants to treat him because she is now on his break and Ryu looks like a drinker. Our hero is a little embarrassed as he knows that he's only 16 years old, but it's fine for him because he looks a lot older than his age. He thanks the woman for his treat and is called a good guy. Ryu wants to know why he's being termed as one, and the lady says that it's simply because of the polite words he's using. The woman proceeds to make small talk with our hero by asking him if it's his first time in the capital city. Ryu says yes and adds a little drama by saying his parents had passed away suddenly due to an illness. The woman becomes mindful and shares her condolences with our hero, who goes on to tell her that he's thinking of living here. Ryu asks if there are any jobs that he can take up over here, and also mentions that he's quite skilled with a sword. The lady starts thinking and instantly says that being a blacksmith will be of no use since he is too old for that. Ryu realizes that age is a huge factor in getting jobs here, so he asks if he can become a merchant. That does sound like a good idea, but the woman says that he will have to start out as an apprentice. Ryu has no wish to be someone else's assistant because he only answers to his sensei, with no other options in mind. The woman says that Ryu can become a mercenary or an adventurer if he's so good with a sword. This sounds interesting to Ryu, so he asks the lady for more details. She's a bit surprised that Ryu doesn't know anything about adventures, so he manages to guide the topic in the right way and ask for further clarity. That's when he learns that he can easily become an adventurer by signing up at the guild and the bank. Both these places are very close to the bar, and they don't even ask for ID, so it will be a piece of cake. With that, Ryu is ready to embark on a new journey, and the woman says that he can drop by to talk anytime he likes, because this place becomes the guild's local tavern at night. Now, our hero rushes to the guild and says that he's looking for a job. The girl at the reception asks for his bank card, and we see that Ryu has already gotten that process done. However, when she looks at the card, it says that he's 16 years old. This is obviously a shock for her because Ryu is way too big to be of that age. However, this makes Ryu feel bad as well, and the girl says sorry for being rude. He says it's okay, but his body language says a whole other story. After a hilarious moment, the reception girl tells Ryu about the guild and how it works. She says that there are various sections of the guild across the continent, and adventurers are measured by rank and level. Rank can be decided based on the achievements, and levels can be decided by the strength and power of the adventurer. Now, the girl asks Ryu if he knows about absorbing strength, and he gives her the same explanation that Geitsu had told him. She proceeds to say that the level represents the number of people whose strength he has absorbed. Usually, people need to absorb strength to reach higher levels, but there has been one person who was able to reach level 7 using only his own strength. Ryu wonders why it's only level 7 and not more, but the girl tells him that he shouldn't worry about such things because he's new to all of this. Now, the girl gives him an explanation on the battle quests. He can earn up to 3 copper coins for simple quests like taking down a bee monster or a dog. For the same thing, he will also gain 1 rank for each successful quest. There are also travel missions where he might be asked to escort certain people to certain places. Ryu is an F-rank adventurer right now, so he can take missions that go to nearby towns. As a matter of fact, he can actually choose a mission that will take him to Murph Island in the east. This is a great chance for our hero to make his way out of the city, because he's a wanted man and doesn't want to attract any attention. The exit point is close to the south of the border, so he decides to go ahead with this mission. In order to keep himself ready for action, he needs to pick up a sword, so he goes to a weapons shop. However, this world doesn't have any katanas, so he'll have to make do with a long sword for now. We are now taken to a flashback where the woman from the bar asks Ryu if he even has a weapon, but Ryu says that his bare hands are more than enough. She thinks it's a very dumb thing for Ryu to say, and she mentions that adventurers don't usually lose their lives to larger monsters. It's easy to run away from them, but it's the weaker monsters that usually end up taking lives because the adventurers are too careless with them. She maintains that Ryu will never be able to deduce what's going to happen to him outside this city, so he should be careful. At this very moment, a man at the bar tells the lady that she should retire because he's going to buy the place soon. We're back to the present now, and we see Ryu still thinking about what to do with the sword. He asks the shop owner if he can help him with a handy weapon, because he does not know anything about the swords of this world. The shop owner takes offense to this and says that he does not have any such weapon. He even tries to act high and mighty with Ryu, but our hero keeps his cool and mentions that the lady at the bar had asked him to come here. This changes the man's tone almost instantly, and then he confirms that Ryu is a new warrior. As expected, he is shocked because Ryu does not look like a young person, so the shop owner wonders what he's been doing with his life all this time. Our hero explains that he's just joined the guild today, but thinks about how his age and appearance are going to cause him problems moving ahead. The shop owner tells him to wait for now, but also stresses on not calling his weapons handy or suitable. He comes back with a dagger, and Ryu likes what he sees. He is also able to identify that the dagger has been made with a formula, and it shocks the shop owner. He did not think that Ryu would be able to spot that, but our hero says that such daggers are hard to break even if they are made with cheaper material. Ryu finally looks like he's getting somewhere, but the shop owner acts shady and even calls him a young man due to his keen sense of vision. Of course, Ryu is puzzled by this behavior, so he asks the shop owner if he has a single-edged sword with a curved blade. He instantly recognizes it as a katana and even says that it's a weapon from another world. Ryu gets hopeful and asks him if he actually has one, but the man says that he does not know how to make katanas. He does realize that Ryu does not want the weapons from this world, so he takes him to his secret room where he has all kinds of weapons from other worlds. Ryu is impressed by this collection as it includes nunchucks, side daggers, tonfa, and the 3-section staff. Our hero has a hard time using them, which makes the shop owner upset. Ryu reassures him that he does know how to use these weapons, but not like an expert. Other weapons include the gabishi, friction lock baton, and even the chakaram from ancient India. Ryu tries out some of the weapons and is able to use them with ease, which impresses the shop owner. However, he is not getting the right feel of them, so he tries out some more. By the end of it all, he decides to take a couple of weapons and the sword as well. However, he only intends to use the sword for now because it's his best bet. With everything set now, he returns to the bar and is greeted by the lady. She is glad to see that Ryu has managed to find himself a nice weapon. And then she asks him if he's received the quest letter. Ryu doesn't know what she's talking about, so the lady explains that he's supposed to get one from the guild. It causes our hero to panic, because he doesn't have one on him at this moment. Now, a man shows up from behind and asks the lady about Ryu, so she tells him what happened with the quest letter. The man says that it's fine, and he can just get the letter from the cute reception girl the next day. Ryu realizes his mistake and thanks the man for his kindness. He says it's nothing and proceeds to tell the entire bar that Ryu is a new guy over here. He raises a toast to our hero and tells everyone to be nice to him as well. A merry night follows, and then we see Ryu chilling at an inn. He has managed to get himself a room, and thanks his quick thinking regarding the change of clothes, this has allowed him to settle into the town while the situation at the royal castle also calms down. He even remembers a moment when some girl guards went past him without realizing that he could be the culprit behind the massacre of the knights. However, this does not mean that he should take things lightly, and that's exactly why he's chosen his latest mission as well. He considers Rolf to be a strong fighter and knows that Syria can use all kinds of magic. Orlando is also a decent fighter, but the one person on Ryu's mind is Syria. He says it's because he could sense the passion in her body when she had seen her dead grandpa. Of course, she has the most motivation to find him, which is why Ryu considers her to be like the queen in a game of chess. There's no point in thinking this much, so Ryu decides to get some rest for now. Now, we move to the Royal Guard, which is commanded by the king's daughter, Shaldana. She gets to take the lead because she is a princess, but one of the knights asks her if it makes sense to go on such a wild goose chase. After all, they don't even know what Ryu looks like, so it makes the knight wonder if Shaldana has some special information. She simply smiles at him and says that it's fine even if she doesn't know what our hero looks like. For some reason, it seems as if she can sense him and will be able to figure it out once he's in front of her. Shaldana is very measured in her calculations, but Syria doesn't agree with her ways. First of all, she's upset because Shaldana is calling off the search till next morning. The princess reasons that it's late at night now, so it could be dangerous for them to continue this way. However, Syria says that causing such a delay will only allow the culprit to get away. Shaldana doesn't have the time to argue with Syria, so she asks Orlando to take her away for now. He does as she says and picks up Syria in a romantic manner. Syria starts blushing and asks Orlando to put her down, but he can't do it because his intrusive thoughts have taken over. He teleports them away from the scene. And then Rolf asks Shaldana for her next plan of action. She says that she will head east and Rolf's men can go to the south to look for Ryu. Rolf isn't too sure about Shaldana going to the east because the border is closest to the south. The princess agrees with him, but for some reason, she is getting a gut feeling about the east. Basically, there are quite a few reasons for the culprit to head to the east, and her hunch is just one of them. Rolf still has concerns about Shaldana's decision, but she has Sadu with her, who is the same person that had questioned her information earlier. He happens to be a standout fighter and she wants to have him as her assistant because he's good from the rear side. Shaldana and Rolf think about mobilizing some forces, but the problem is that they can still get attacked from an enemy force known as Zaryuta. Also, it was quite lucky for them after Gaetsu's passing because usually, the nobles would rebel in such a situation. This is exactly why the two of them decide not to waste the few choices they have to make. While Rolf and Shaldana discuss more battle plans, we see our hero trying out his new weapons on a bunch of fierce wolves. He uses the chakra weapons from India and is able to use them with ease. The wolves attack him as a pack, so Ryu takes out his sword and does the damage. By the end of it all, our hero has been able to take down over 50 wild wolves, 30 wild bees, and almost 40 wild rabbits. It's quite a lot for someone who is just starting out. But Ryu is unbothered, as he presents the bounty to the cute reception girl at Murph Island. She comments that Ryu has outdone himself, but he says that his sword has gotten dull due to his attacks. He wants to sharpen his weapon, but the girl is more surprised to hear that he hunted down all these beasts in just one day. She had thought he was a magician with a strong destructive power, but it turns out that he's just a strong man in general. Ryu gets himself a nice reward for all his hard work, and he calculates the value of the money based on how much he would normally spend on lunch. He comes to the conclusion that he has made over 40,000 yen, so it's a nice bounty. The girl also tells him that he's gone up to WF rank due to his mission. Ryu looks surprised that he's grown so quickly, and the girl wonders if he's not too happy about it. Our hero clears the confusion, And then the girl says that he will now get double the reward since he has ranked up. She is confident that he will continue to succeed because he is very talented from the looks of it. The girl continues to tempt Ryu to take on more missions and also talks to him in a seductive way. Our hero is about to let his intrusive thoughts take over, but before he loses control, he remembers what the lady at the bar told him about being careful. He realizes that he should not try to act too confident, so he asks the reception girl for a healing potion. However, she says that healing potions made by magic are very expensive, starting at 10 gold coins for one. That translates to 1,000,000 yen, which is a bit silly for just one bottle. Being injured in this world is a tricky thing, so Ryu decides to buy the potion just in case of an emergency. Since there is no insurance either, he chooses to buy one more sword as well. However, before he can complete his train of thought, he can hear an angry customer on the other counter of the guild. He seems to be upset with his reward and is arguing with the guild man over it. He believes that he should be getting a higher reward for taking down a robber, especially because he risked his life to get the job done. However, the guildman tells him that he might be a first-rank swordsman but is still a third-rank adventurer. This person's name is Gories, and he was able to defeat a robber, but this was not from the list of Red Moon bandits who had the bounty on their heads. What's more is that while Gories was wasting his time with a useless robber, the Red Moon bandits ended up raiding a nearby village. It so happens that some young innocent girls were also captured due to this. So Gories feels horrible about the whole thing. He confirms that if he had gone for the Red Moon bandits, then those girls would not be captured. The guildman does not want to give a clear answer but does say that it would have been better if Gories had gone for the right target, fearing that those innocent girls will be sold as slaves to creepy men. Gories admits his mistake and tells the guildman to charge him a penalty for his actions. Ryu is confused by this interaction, but the reception girl tells him that such things happen all the time. Ryu calls Gories' quest a failure, and the guild girl says that the most important duty of an adventurer is to investigate what he's doing. After all, a failed quest could lead to horrible futures for innocent people, and that's exactly what has happened with Gories, even though he has a kind heart. With this information, Ryu sets out on his journey and admits that his thinking was a bit shallow at first. It turns out that this world is not like a game where he can casually just fail quests. There are consequences to his actions, so he needs to be a better man. Now, he checks the directions on the map and finds that the town arrow should be nearby if he keeps heading east. He can't see any of the Red Moon bandits either, but suddenly an eerie sensation hits him. We shift to the bandits who are talking about their recent bounty, which includes 300 gold coins. On top of that, they have also scored some pretty girls, and we learn that it's Sarah and her sister Rora, whom we had seen earlier. The shameless men want to have some fun with their new slaves, but one of them is worried about the boss finding out. The men eventually figure that they don't need to tell the boss about these two slave girls, and they can just get rid of them once they're done violating them. This is when we realize that the previous master of these girls simply chose to run away at that time when we last saw them with the dragon. Ryu has reached the scene and he has identified these men as his new targets. The girls try to resist the bandits by saying they'll just bite their tongues if the men touch them. However, they are wearing slave collars, which means that they can't fight back against these shady goons. The bandits soak in this moment and decide to have their way with the slave girls. They even choose who gets to violate which girl based on their hair color. Ryu has had just about enough of this, and he can't contain his rage any longer, especially after seeing how shameless these bandits are. Sarah and her sister brace themselves for a horror show, but then the attacking goons get attacked out of thin air. The girls are confused to see this, and then we see our hero pulling out some of his best moves with his sword. The bandits are confused as to who this man is, and they try to scare him by saying they're a dangerous gang. However, Ryu doesn't care for shallow words, and even drops his sword to the ground. He proceeds to give the goons the thrashing of a lifetime by first using his fists, and then he decides to use his collection of weapons as well. None of the bandits are any match for Ryu, as he manages to take them down with ease. Sarah and her sister watch on as our hero defends their honor in brutal fashion. After a brief fight, Ryu emerges the victor and then asks the girls if they're alright. Of course, his raw power is more than enough to take their breath away, so they stare at him with a sense of wonder. Ryu frees the girls and proceeds to pick up his sword after realizing that he successfully rescued them. Rora takes this chance to wipe his cheek because he's bleeding from a slight cut. Ryu maintains that he's fine. And then he gets a formal introduction from Sarah and Rora. They turn out to be twins, so it's like a dream come true for Ryu. But he keeps his emotions in check and confirms if the girls are healthy and fine. They thank him for saving them from a horrid experience. But our hero refuses to accept their gratitude. He confesses that he had waited for the enemies to drop their weapons and even pull down their pants. He could have struck earlier, but wanted to be careful, which is why he caused the girls some discomfort. Sarah and Rora are fine with it, and are just thankful to be free, so they don't mind what Ryu did for them. After all, This was only to ensure that he could save them for sure. Now, our hero takes a good look at the twin girls and notices that they have very curvy bodies and cute faces. His intrusive thoughts start to take over, but the girls ask him if anything is wrong, so he snaps back to his senses. He seems to like their outfits because they look like belly dancers. But what's even more prominent is the fact that they have slave collars and shackles. He asks them for their full names, but the girls say that slaves don't have them. The girls ask him for his name, and he introduces himself formally, after which he offers to take the girls to Eru. However, the girls say that they can't move from here unless their master allows them to do so. Ryu is baffled by this, but the girls are actually being serious, so there's not much he can do about it. He offers to find their master for them, but the girls reveal that he had run away when the bandits had shown up. This only makes things more difficult for Ryu, but the girls maintain that they can't do anything unless their master tells them to. He wants to help these girls and be done with the whole mess, because he does have Shaldana and the others chasing after him. He tells the girls that there's no telling what kind of monster can show up in the night, so he's going to clean up the bodies for now. He says that he will be leaving after that, and the girls are ready to say goodbye to him. Ryu goes on his merry way, but he wonders if he could have done more for the slave girls. He quickly realizes a big mistake he made with the goons, as one of them has survived his blows. The bandit says that he recognizes Ryu's face now, and will make sure to end him when he comes back with his other goons. What's even worse is that he has kidnapped Sarah and is taking her away on his horse. Rora is left behind and she calls out to her sister, but it's too late as the bandit has managed to escape on his horse. Ryu can't do anything about this because he's not as fast as a horse. He uses the healing potion to regain his strength, and then he rushes to Rora, who then asks him if he is willing to cut a small wound on his left hand's pinky finger. Our hero is confused, but there isn't much time, so he has to act fast. Ryu cuts his finger and then Rora starts praying to her god. Our hero feels something odd about her, because she clearly has a lot to offer than just her body. Now, Rora offers Ryu's blood as an offering and forms a contract with him, thus making her his slave now. With that, her collars and shackles break and she is truly freed from her previous master. Rora apologizes for using her powers, but also refers to Ryu as her master, which makes him a bit awkward. She then seeks permission to use her magic and gains approval from Ryu. After that, Rora proceeds to call upon the power of the wind and she launches an attack on the bandit who is running away with Sarah. That's when we learn that Rora is a magician, just like Geitsu, and her powers are quite impressive. She uses a wind/attack on the goon, and it eventually manages to knock him down with his horse. Now that the villain has been taken down, Rora offers her hand to Ryu and says that they can go rescue Sarah. Our hero feels it will take some time because the bandit has gone quite ahead of them. But this is no problem for Rora, as she uses her wind powers once again to help them travel in lightning quick time. Ryu is amazed by Rora's powers, and they reach Sarah in an instant. With the danger averted, Rora hugs Sarah with joyful tears and the sisters are happily reunited. Ryu is still trying to understand how he was able to travel so much distance in just 1 second, and he learns that it's wind magic. Rora is a bit surprised that Ryu doesn't know about magic, especially if he is so good at martial arts. Our hero is aware that magic exists in this world, but is unsure if he should lie or tell the truth to these girls. Rora looks after Sarah while Ryu asks about the bandit. It turns out that his legs are stuck under the horse, so he can't move at all. Ryu wants to get rid of him, but wants to ask the girls first for their opinion. After all, they were the ones who had to endure the most pain under this creep. Rora and Sarah simply say that they are fine with whatever Ryu chooses, because he is their new master. Ryu is a bit taken aback to hear this, but it's true that he now has 2 beautiful slave girls to serve all his needs. How is our hero going to make use of his new harem? What lies ahead on his journey? Like, share, and subscribe to find out in the next video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.